Today's show is brought to you by two of our favorite organizations, the Carnegie Library of Pittsburgh and the Allegheny County Library Association. September marks 10 years of their joint program, Love Your Library. It's really a county-wide celebration where your donation during the month of September will be partially matched and helps keep essential services going. So everything from books and materials to facility improvements and programs for all. If you use the library system, show your love and donate now at loveyourlibrary.org. CityCast Pittsburgh is supported today by the Heinz History Center and their newest exhibition, Pittsburgh's Hidden History. It is a cornucopia of curiosity, a magical menagerie of memory, and a little bit of this and that. There are flowery couches, relics from Kennywood, even a collection of shivs. If you listen to this show a lot, you know we are loving this. It is truly mind-boggling to see how the curators brought together such a wide range of rarely seen artifacts to tell Pittsburgh stories like never before. To buy your tickets and learn more, visit HeinzHistoryCenter.org.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, gambling is everywhere in Pennsylvania. You've got casinos, apps, the lottery, skill games, fantasy sports. It's fun for some, but it's also incredibly addictive. And while you can ban yourself from gambling, critics say that's easy to get around. And the penalties don't incentivize these big companies to prevent problem behavior. We are sharing an episode about all of this from our friends over at CityCast Philly. Host Trinae Nuri is talking to Axios Philadelphia's Isaac Avalucia about what's at stake and how our government actually benefits when Pennsylvanians pony up. It's Tuesday, September 23rd. I'm Mallory Falk, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about.
Isaac, thanks so much for coming back on the show. You know, it seems like gambling is everywhere. Like once sports gambling was legalized, it just took off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. In Pennsylvania, we're talking about record revenue just last year, $6.1 billion the state of Pennsylvania hauled in gaming revenue in 2024, a third of which comes from online gambling, about $2 billion that the state gets just strictly off the things that you're talking about. Online sports betting is one of the biggest drivers of that revenue in the state of Pennsylvania. We're talking about people that is one of their primary ways to gamble. And every single year, Penn State University, as a result of legalizing gambling in the state of Pennsylvania, does a kind of state of play on where people are at with gambling. And they found that the people who are at most risk for being problem gamblers, is the way they term it, are these what they call mixed venue bettors, right? Where you're doing 5 different types of gambling that range from things like lottery to online sports gambling to actually going to those brick and mortar casinos to play. Those are the types of people that it's integrated into their life. It's not just at their fingertips. They're going to the casino. They're going to the Wawa and buying a lottery ticket for that night. They're going to the vending machine and getting, 3 or 4 or 5 scratch offs to try to see if they can win. Those are the people that are really susceptible and really vulnerable to being termed problem gamblers. So we see a rise in revenue, but the implications of that is we also see a rise in the number of people that are gambling and then in turn having issues with gambling. We see more and more people putting themselves on the so-called self-ban list to prevent themselves because they feel like they don't have the internal locus to avoid gambling themselves. They're putting themselves on that self-ban list to avoid, or at least in theory, avoid going to those casinos, getting on those betting apps, doing the lottery. You can do it across the gamut. But there are some loopholes and some limitations that I'm sure we're going to get to here in a few minutes.
Isaac, you talked about just how much the state makes in taxes from gambling revenue. It's in the billions. That's a lot of money. I want to talk about someone you spoke with, a man named Tom, who, gambling just took over his life.
Yeah, Tom, I talked to him, and he zeroed in on this experience one day last year when he was really in the thick of and the throes of his gambling addiction, and he remembered he was with a bunch of friends at a mountain lodge somewhere here in Pennsylvania, and while his friends were outside drinking beers and making merry in the jacuzzi, he was cooped up in his room, streaming the Packers game, a Packers game on his smartphone. He had bet $2,500 on that particular outcome of that game, and he lost it that night on one bet. And that's when he came to the realization that, hey, I think I might have a problem. And he said he felt so much shame that he felt like he had cheated on his girlfriends. Those are his words. That's how much shame that he felt. And that's when he started to realize, hey, I have a serious problem. I need to take serious steps to try to get this under control because it's not only not fun anymore and I'm losing money that could be spent on better things, but I'm isolating from my friends. I'm losing those things that can really anchor me to not engage in problem gambling, right? I heard something on a TED Talk once, this great TED Talk that said the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety. The opposite of addiction is connection. And he was severing those ties to his friends, right? He's no longer connected to his friends or having fun with them in the jacuzzi. He's over here isolating so he can sit here and watch the outcome of this meaningless Packers game to see if he won or lost.
So you mentioned this self-banning that people can do if they want to stop this cycle of gambling or addiction to gambling. Tell me about this program. Does it apply to both casinos and betting apps?
Yes, you can do it across the gamut. You can do it in the brick and mortar casinos. There's a one-stop shop where you can ban yourself from all these gaming apps that we're talking about, lottery, iGaming, all those different things. There's an all-encompassing website that you can go on the state of Pennsylvania that operates it as a result of legalizing this gaming industry, this online gaming industry. This was required. This is something that is accessible to anybody that might be feeling like they are engaging in problem gambling. They can go there, enroll in it, and fill out the form. And there's certain different types of identification and steps you have to take to enroll. But it's a serious measure, right? Because when you ban yourself, you're saying, I I want you, if I end up showing up at one of these brick and mortar casinos or online gambling apps, you got to kick me out, right? And you're putting yourself at risk of being trespassed. So there are potentially serious consequences for showing up at these casinos. But that said, there are limitations with this self-ban route because it really relies on this honor system. We are talking about people who are in essence admitting I have a gambling problem and I am trying to put the onus on myself to stop myself from going to these casinos, from betting on these apps. And so then you have this other component of you have gambling operators who have to play at gatekeeper a little bit, but they can't catch everybody.
Isaac, how many Pennsylvanians have self-banned so far?
The state actually just updated its website, and we're up to 43,000 people who have banned themselves from all these different gambling forums. And if you go back to 2024, we're talking about more than 7,000 people in 2024 had banned themselves, which was a stark increase from 2019, where it was about 15 or 1,600 people. So we're seeing lots and lots more people taking advantage of this route, of this self-ban opportunity in Pennsylvania.
How long are people self-banning themselves for?
You can self-ban for between a year to a lifetime. So it's a whole range. And I think I don't have the exact data on how many have chosen to do lifetime bans versus 1 to 5 years, but it ranges, it runs across the gamut, and people kind of pick and choose what restraints they need to impose on themselves in order to kick that gambling habit.
And can you get yourself off this list if you don't want to be on it anymore?
You can, but it's a cumbersome process. If your time to self-ban has not expired, you have to petition the state gaming board to try to get off the list. And those officials at that office told me they rarely allow people off the ban list if their time has not expired. There is an outlet to try to petition it, and there are always extraordinary circumstances that are considered, but it's a tough lift once you're on it. That's why it's a serious decision to sign up for it in the first place.
And of those people who self-ban themselves, how many still show up to the casino?
It's a lot. It's a lot. There's some gaps in the data because what you're looking at is about 11,000 instances we've had of people on the self-ban list, either showing up at brick and mortar casinos, that's the majority of them, or gambling online or on any of these different forums that they've been caught. Now, what we don't know, are those the same people that are showing up time and time again, or are these different instances? I think it's a little bit of both, because I talked to Liz Lanza, one of the experts from the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling, and she had said that typically somebody who is self-banned shows up about 2 to 3 times at a casino before they are actually caught. So that is just the people who are caught, right? There's a whole host of people, an untold amount of people that go undetected and find a way to gamble in the casinos, either showing fake IDs, according to Ms. Lanza, sometimes using disguises, or just sometimes walking up and getting access to the casino. Because really what happens is, not some of these gaming operators, I'll take Parks Casino in Ben Salem as an example. They have these license scanners that they implemented a few years ago to try to catch some of these people entering at the gates, right? But what it relies upon is this idea that every single time somebody walks into a casino, they're actually taking somebody's license and scanning it to see if they're on the state's self-ban list. I've actually been to Parks Casino myself, right? And walked in, and I'm not on the ban list, but they didn't even take my ID, right? And one of
So
the
you're saying there could be some loopholes.
There's absolutely loopholes, right? And it would require Parks Casino staff to each and single solitary time take every person's ID and scan it who walks in that door. And I talked to an official there at Parks, and he admitted, yeah, if you're looking above the age of 30, our staff isn't necessarily going to card you every single time, because it's a hassle for people that are just going in there to have a good time, to have some fun, maybe to go to one of the venues, the concerts. So they're not doing that every single time. So if you're admitting that, you're saying we don't do it every single time, well, then undoubtedly there are going to be people on that self-ban list that are going to slip through those cracks.
Learning a new language opens the door to new friends, new cultures, maybe even a whole new life. So why not start that journey today? I'm CityCast CEO David Plotz, and I'm learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's conversation-based technique quickly teaches you useful words and phrases about the things you actually talk about in the real world. I've been practicing my Spanish with Babbel's AI conversation partner. I can choose my conversation topic and have a real-time dialogue. It's great at helping me think on my feet, and it's improving my pronunciation. Also, it's really easy to do anytime on my phone using Babbel's excellent mobile app. It's just one of the many fantastic Babbel tools for learning. Plus, Babbel has a real-time feedback, progress trackers, and handy visualizations, all of which make it really easy to stay motivated to learn. I want you to learn another language. So CityCast is teaming up with Babbel to gift you 55% off subscriptions, but only for our listeners at babbel.com/citycast. Get up to 55% off at babbel.com/citycast. Spelled BABBEL.com/citycast. Babbel.com/citycast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Isaac, what type of penalties do the gaming operators face if someone who has been self-excluded from gambling is at one of their venues?
Yeah, and we do have to give a little bit of credit to state regulators because it's not that they are doing nothing, right? They are doing something, but the idea is that something enough? And I think the answer to that question is no, because you look at the penalties in particular, and I got some data from the state that showed since 2009, they have implemented 49 consent orders with dozens of these casino operators that have been caught or allowing self-banned people to play at their establishments, right? We're talking about $1.1 million in fines collectively between 2009 to the present. That is a relative pittance.
And those fines that you're mentioning, they range from 5,000 to more than $250,000.
Yeah. And even if you look at some of these more recent examples, for example, BetMGM just earlier this year in January was fined $260,000 for 152 instances of people that were self-banned and then were allowed to gamble on the online sites, right? So these are serious things, and they self-audited and against the state's self-ban list and caught this, right? And good on them for reporting it. But they got to date the stiffest fine in state history, according to the data I have, $260,000. Additionally, they were required to pay a $20,000 donation to the office, our local office of Council of Problem Gambling. But we're talking about in total $280,000 to a outlet that has racked in $2.1 billion in revenue in 2024. So when you do the math, we're not even talking about a percentage of their overall revenue that they made in 2024 that went to that fine. So when you think about that in the grand scheme of things, it's almost like the cost of doing business, right? And we do see other casino operators trying to get more serious about this problem. Live Casino in Philadelphia is one of them. They're actually committed to installing facial recognition technology, can root out and find these people on the self-ban list. And they're planning to implement that technology later this year. They're one of the only gaming operators in the state that we can confirm is actually planning to employ facial recognition technology. I talked to an official there at Parks who said they've thought about it, but it opens up a Pandora's box of privacy issues. And so far, they felt like it is not something they're willing to do. It is not something that they need to do right now.
Interesting. Are there other proposals to protect problem gamblers from themselves? Is there anything that the government can do here?
When you talk to some of the regulators, the idea that they often kick around is a national database of self-banned people, because one of the biggest loopholes is that you can self-ban in Pennsylvania and then go to another state, either a neighboring state or somewhere else across the country, and continue to play, right? So if you have a nationalized database, you ban in one state, then another state that has like a Las Vegas, Nevada, or one of these other neighboring states, Atlantic City, they have an idea who's on a self-ban list in every single state, and they can keep those people from playing in their casinos. But right now, that's one of the biggest loopholes, especially in the tri-state region, right? Even a regional database would be helpful to attenuating some of these issues, right? Because right now, if you're on the self-ban list in Pennsylvania, there's nothing really stopping you from just hopping over to New Jersey and playing over there.
Are there lessons from other cities or states in terms of how they help people avoid losing rent money, money that could be spent on the kid's birthday or, tuition, like losing your life's fortune on a Packers game?
That's a great question, Trinae. And I think that I think Las Vegas is the biggest case study in this. And this is kind of where the foundation of these self-ban programs emanate from. But again, it comes back to this idea that this is not a panacea. This is a tool and a toolkit that can be used, but it also requires buy-in from not only the gambler, but the casinos, right? And they have to increase the accountability. They have to increase the tools that they're using to root out these people that are still exploiting those loopholes in that self-ban. And I read an academic paper from a UNLV professor 2015 that was pointing out some of these limitations even back then of these self-ban programs. And those things that he was talking about back then are the same things that we're talking about today. There are stark limitations to these self-ban programs. And these are some of the reasons that I wanted to put a lens on it to really make crystal clear that this is only part of the problem and part of the solution, right? I talked to a therapist as part of some of this reporting that it can't just be this in isolation. You have to kind of get the other component of getting some help therapy to root out the real reasons why you are continuing to engage in gambling or engage in gambling at all, right? It can't be one or the other. It has to be a both.
Isaac, obviously the state benefits from gambling revenue. I mean, where does that revenue get put into?
Yeah, some of it is reinvested back into the Office of Compulsive and Problem Gambling to spur some of these initiatives to prevent the very types of problem gambling that we're trying to avoid, right? But those programmatic efforts to really get people the help that they need. So that's part of where some of the money goes. But I think what we're talking about is this is a big slice of revenue for the state of Pennsylvania that is not going anywhere, that it has in turn become almost reliant upon. So for better or worse, we are stuck with gambling. This is what the voters wanted. This isn't just a Pennsylvania issue. This is something that voters across the country have wanted, have been clamoring for online gambling for many, many years. So this is part and parcel of our society. It's not going anywhere, and it's incumbent upon us to really mitigate the harm of this because it's here to stay. It's in your face. It's play after play. You're betting on anything from, this receiver to get this amount of yards to this quarterback to throw 2 or 3 touchdowns. And I think you were telling me earlier, there's another website that actually allows you to gamble on different social events.
Yeah, like events that haven't even happened. Who's the next presidential election winner? We're not even close to that right now. Or even who's going to win the New York City mayor election? Or is the government going to get shut down on October 1st?
We're in an era where everything is being increasingly gamified. And I think that what that website you're talking about speaks to that idea.
Well, we'll keep our eyes on any developments on this, Isaac. Isaac Avellucci, a reporter for Axios Philadelphia. Thank you so much for joining me on CityCast Philly.
Good to talk, Janae.
You can read Isaac's full story by clicking the link in the show notes.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. I know the Philly team centered the gambling spots in their area, but don't forget we have Rivers Casino right here on the North Shore and close to a dozen other casino-type spaces within a couple hours of the city. Plus skill games, apps, the lottery, and more. We'll keep watching how all of this evolves. If you or a friend struggles with addictive behavior around gambling, there is a toll-free number to call, 1-800-GAMBLER. You can get support, information, and referrals to services that help. We'll have a link in our show notes to PA's self-exclusion list if you want to learn more. We will be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Talk to you soon.